Hello guys, welcome back to Animation. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I was watching the final episode of Attack on Titans, the final season, part 2, and I came across a concept in a 1-minute clip that I felt, I could share and maybe get some of your insights on the matter. So if you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe. Trying to build an anime community here. Like the video if you enjoy the content, and let's get into it. Okay, so I'm trying my possible best not to include too much spoilers in here. So basically, we do have a couple of key characters. There's Mikasa, Armin, Jean, Hanji, and a few other guys from the other camp as well, the Marlians. A short briefing as to how we got here. They are all, united in their attempts to more or less stop Eren from his quest to demolish all races beyond the walls of Eldia. This is because previously the Eldians used the Titan abilities to conquer cities and enslave other cities, one of which was Mali. We know this because the Malian general more or less said,
I guess all those centuries of Marley's people getting ground under Eldia's heel don't count for anything in your mind.
To which, Jean responds,
Now you're gonna play the victim over something that happened 2,000 years ago?
It's like talking to a child. It started 2,000 years ago. Compared to the sum of the carnage and misery wrought by Eldia, your island's suffering is a joke.
I believe this brief discussion between both of them could more or less be related to the race relations that plague, black and white America in recent times, where historically black people were trampled upon by the dominance of, white America. And you can kind of see the similarities between the two camps, where you could relate black people to the Malians and white people to the Eldians, where historically the Eldians used the Titan powers to more or less trample and dominate other races or other groups of people, other nations basically. And then now the Malians are using that historic event as justification to attack the Eldians, and the Eldians who have lived through the current generation, Eren Yeager, Jin, Armin, they don't necessarily believe that's enough justification for basically the repercussions they're receiving right now, because they weren't their ancestors. So therefore, they don't expect to be more or less suffering the punishment of the sins of their ancestors. And on the other hand, the Marlians believe, their actions are justified. I believe you can relate this more or less to the little portion of maybe the Black Lives Matter protest that broke out, where some of the black people in that camp were more or less justifying the violence based off of the historic violence that were done to the ancestors by white people as well. And this kind of made me sit back and take a look at things differently, because as you all know, I am black. But watching Attack on Titans, I more or less identified with the Eldians because that's what I watched. It was their lives I followed through. I saw basically the show from the vision of an Eldian, because the protagonist was Eren. The story started in Eldia and progressed through an Eldian vision. So I more or less identify with the Eldians, and this kind of more or less the dynamic kind of got twisted again when Eren decided to turn against the Eldians and more or less say he was for the destruction of the Eldians. Now then, more or less watching the series through the eyes of the protagonist, you're more or less conflicted. Do you follow along with the protagonist, or do you oppose the protagonist? Do you oppose his views? When watching the show, I thought I deemed it right to oppose Eren's views, so I was still watching the show from the vision of an Eldian. Me seeing, the fact that, the euthanization, the fact that Eren wanted to carry out the euthanization, I felt that wasn't right, because the Eldians didn't need to suffer because of the other world's perception of them and the other world's perception of the violence that, they could bring about, not necessarily what they had brought about or what they were bringing about. I still was on the side of the Eldians. And when the script kind of flipped back to where Elden was in support of the Eldians, and his vision was more or less to oppose the Malians or to oppose other races, I didn't necessarily have any concern with that because my view was from that of an Eldian. So now remember, the Eldians are more or less the white race and the Malians are more or less the black race. So during this discussion, when Jin spoke that, he shouldn't be punished for the sins of his elders or for an event that took place years ago,
I guess all those centuries of Marley's people getting ground under Eldia's heel don't count for anything in your mind.
Now you're gonna play the victim over something that happened 2,000 years ago?
It's like talking to a child. It started 2,000 years ago.
It got me to kind of pause and look at things more or less from the vision of another race and how they would have seen how things, more or less how historic events should not define what is taking place in current days. I haven't necessarily yet come to a conclusion, but I just felt that when he spoke, I more or less saw things more or less from the vision of being in the position of where your ancestors were more or less oppressors and how others view you and how the world views you. And I don't know if that kind of makes sense, if it doesn't necessarily make sense, but I'm hoping you guys can help me out with that. I might more or less release another video more or less defining my points when I've kind of thought it through, but I'd like to see what you guys think and I'd like to see the comments you guys put down below. So hopefully this, share this video, let's get an array of perspectives and see how this turns out. So till the next one, stay safe guys, like, subscribe, share the video, peace.